Welcome to the third episode of our Q1 2021 Pulse of Payments series sponsored by Company.com. Today's guest is Anand Goel, the president and CEO of Optimized Payments. Optimized Payments has helped mid-market and Fortune 100 companies save over $300 million in interchange and processing fees. Anand has also led efforts to revolutionize payments analytics. So Anand, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you for having me on the series.
Absolutely. So let's talk about data. I think what people want to see in payments data is it's really the analytics and the actionable insights. But how do you see the future of data in payments?
I read an article yesterday from Forbes that had digital commerce sales growing by 20% annually. And the article stated that digital commerce sales are expected to grow to $5.8 trillion globally by the end of 2022. And that's just next year. That's a lot of payments, and not just card payments, but alternative payment methods, electronic payments. So when you think about digital commerce, that's mobile, your mobile devices and your computers, and all that data, all those payments, there's a lot of information with those payments and that come after those payments take place. And all that data helps companies manage costs, manage fraud and risk, reconcile their books, manage chargebacks. But a lot of companies don't have efficient means to consume all that information and really highlight elements that are going to provide insights or help them manage their business better. And so what we see is, creating a platform where, as an agnostic company, we don't necessarily care what payments you accept, what payment relationships, vendor relationships you have. We're going to consume all of that data and normalize it across different providers. So as you can imagine, Greg, every payment processor, alternative payment method, when they provide data to you, whether it's settlement files, recon files, all of those data elements are in very different file formats. So it takes quite a bit of effort for a company to stand up an IT project, to consume that data, and then on top of that, have the business expertise to normalize all that information so you can easily view it. And then you also need some sophistication to use a BI tool to really pick out the key elements that are really important. So that's the business that we've created at Optimized Payments, is building a payment analytics platform that can consume this growing amounts of payments data, normalize it, enrich it, and then allow our clients to visualize it through web-based dashboards. And also to provide them email alerts when they set predefined thresholds. So if a company wants to know, if my chargeback ratio exceeds, 50 basis points, I want to get an alert. If my decline rate exceeds 3%, I want to get an email alert. If my downgrade ratio goes beyond 7%, I want to get an email alert. We can send them, the next day. So it's kind of near real-time data analytics.
Okay. So do you think it's that we have more data now than we used to as an industry, or is this that companies have gotten better about learning from the data?
I think it's probably both. I mean, as you can imagine, from when I was a kid, you go to grocery stores, people pay by check, right? And today, the grocery vertical is the number one vertical that takes card payments. So even on a personal level, when we buy in-store, online, through our devices, we're all using electronic payment methods. So we're shifting away from cash and checks. So now the sheer volume of electronic payments is huge. And then also, there's more data that's getting generated and attributed to all of this information. The cost of payments or even fraud relating to payments used to be nominal maybe 20 years ago, but it's huge now. Fraud is a big deal. Cost is a big deal. So there's a greater interest in organizations wanting to kind of analyze that data and make it more actionable.
Okay. Yeah, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about some of the regulatory changes coming up in the industry. Specifically, if you could touch on the NACHA changes that are coming, and then any other trends or upcoming regulatory issues in 2021 that you think are coming. If you could speak to that, that'd be great.
Sure. So with respect to NACHA, in an effort to reduce fraud, NACHA is implementing a rule for authentication of account numbers that are accepted for the first time by merchants. The rule was slated to take effect about a year ago, but NACHA agreed to extend the implementation until 19th of next month, so 19th of March. The good news is that any business that is accepting ACH payments and they have an account number on file that's been successfully used to process a payment meets the requirements of account authentication. So the rule specifically applies to new ACH transactions that are web debits. And as you may have heard, there are three methods of authentication that NACHA cites as being acceptable. The first one is a pre-notification transaction. The second is a micro transaction, or often called a penny test. And the third one is the third authentication method is using a third party to authenticate an account number. Now, the first two methods, some merchant might have a concern because of timing. So if you're trying to buy something online and you want to use ACH credentials, well, there's really not enough time to do pre-note or penny test because they can take a couple of days, right?
Right.
Whereas you may want to rely on the third-party authentication. And if you go to NACHA's website, they have a number of recommendations providers of third-party authentication providers. Now, if there are merchants out there, they're struggling to be compliant by the March 19th deadline, they can request an extension from NACHA. They'll be required to demonstrate that they're making progress towards compliance, but it's not a hard date. So that's the first part of your question, which is about NACHA.
Right.
But when I think about maybe other payments related changes that are coming down in the near future, the first thing that comes to mind is the interchange updates from Visa and MasterCard. There was an article from Bloomberg that I read. It said, it quoted that Visa is planning the biggest change to swipe fees in a decade. And I couldn't agree more. And the reason it's a huge change is, they're introducing a tremendous increase. There are a number of categories that are increasing. There are a few categories that are decreasing in interchange fees, but the net effect is overall interchange fees are going to go up for vast majority of the merchants by 3 to 6% on average. And the reason for the range is it just depends on the mix of cards that a merchant is accepting. If they take a lot of business cards, they're probably going to be, it's going to be closer to the 6% range. But that's a tremendous increase. And also, Visa is introducing, they're introducing some additional fees for declines. So if that is relevant for billers who have card on file. So if you get hard declines, you don't want to reauthorize that transaction, because if you try to, then you'll be hit with additional fees.
Okay. Was that Visa change supposed to happen last year?
Yeah. There were some of those changes that I just spoke about were supposed to happen last April, and because we had the pandemic hit, Visa didn't want to, get a negative perception in the marketplace that, hey, just when the market is tanking, they're increasing fees. So they postponed a lot of those increases until April of this year.
Okay. Okay. Well, mentioning the pandemic's a good segue into the next
Mhm.
question. What do you think the payments ecosystem looks like post COVID-19?
Yeah. So, COVID-19 has really accelerated the shift to digital channels. And I think some of that shift is going to remain post pandemic. When I think about it at a personal level, I mean, I was already buying online, but I think I'm doing more so today. It's so much easier to buy online and return, return either in the store or just return it back because there's free shipping involved, right?
Right.
I like ordering ahead, just use my app, and whether it's food or sometimes groceries, you can order ahead and just go pick up. And there has been this, so these new use cases are going to continue to increase electronic payments or digital payments. And there are also, these new marketplaces like Etsy where you can buy anything. But there's also recently I came across a marketplace slash site website called Goldbelly. And Goldbelly, you can order dessert from any famous restaurant in the US. So
Hmm.
if you went to New York and you had this great, I don't know, pie, um, this cheesecake pie or something, right? Cheesecake or an apple pie, you can come back to your home and look up that restaurant and order that dessert
Wow.
from that restaurant and have it delivered to you. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, that is just to say, digital payments are going to continue to grow. Um, and along with that, all the stuff that comes with digital payments is going to grow. So that is like fraud, because in the retail environment, the industry implemented EMV, and fraud or counterfeit fraud has decreased substantially.
Hmm.
And all that fraud that used to exist in the retail environment has gone online.
Right.
And now that we as consumers and as businesses go online, that means all that fraud and chargebacks is going online as well. So that means organizations are going to have to create efficient processes and analytics frameworks to manage this growth and to manage the fraud and chargebacks. I also see a continued growth in alternative payment methods. So whether that's PayPal, Amazon Pay, for Chinese customers traveling here, Alipay, WeChat Pay, and even some cryptocurrencies. I mean, I think they're going to take a while to come online because just the speed of those transactions is a little slow. But eventually they'll become faster where I could see them coming online. And then also going beyond that, like ACH credentials. There are companies like Trustly that are facilitating that. So I
Right.
see alternative payments continue to grow as well.
Okay. Do you think that pendulum, I always ask this question, kind of get some different answers, but the pendulum is really for a lot of people swung to they're buying almost everything online. But when
Mhm.
things get better, do you think people are going to start going back to stores and we're going to start seeing like how far does that pendulum go back, do you think?
Yeah. Clearly, I mean, that's going to be the case. I mean, there's a social nature of shopping, going to a store, being able to browse, whether it's clothes. I mean, me personally, I like going to the grocery store because I like to see my produce
Right.
before I buy it, right? So I think you're going to see some of that definitely swing back to people going to stores, but it's not going to be fully back because there are going to be certain conveniences that we just love, you know, whether it's like Uber Eats, where you can order from your restaurant and just have it delivered. And so there are certain conveniences I think we're going to maybe prioritize that are better for us. So that's going to be the case. And there are just more and more sort of experiences that I think we value, like whether it's, I mean, even though I have a car and sometimes it's working fine, I just don't want to drive somewhere. And because I'm going downtown, I don't want to have to go through the hassle of parking. So it's much easier for me to be stress-free and take an Uber, right?
Right.
So I think the pendulum's gonna swing back, but not fully, where there is value being created and convenience is being created. That's going to continue to grow sort of these digital channels and digital payments.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other hot trends in payments that you think are coming?
Yeah, there are a couple that I can think of. One kind of continuing on to my previous comment. The first trend is I see as digital payments grow because of just global growth and digital channels and experiences. As digital payments grow, so does decline rates and fraud and chargebacks. So this is going to be a big focus for organizations, is that, hey, and maybe in the past I really didn't have to worry about decline rates or fraud, but now because so much of my business is coming from digital channels, it's a real concern. So definitely that's going to be number one. Number two is going to be an integrated payments infrastructure that links your customers' experiences across all of your channels. The typical large enterprise merchant, they might have had retail stores, and then they added an e-com channel, and they might have added a gateway like a CyberSource in that e-com channel. But there's no way to link customers who shop in your retail store with customers who shop online or shop through their mobile device or shop through an app. So having an integrated payments infrastructure is going to allow you to link the customer shopping across all of your channels and give you a 360-degree view of your customers, regardless of the channel. And I think sort of the fundamental building block of that, one of them is like an Omni token, that a card number, no matter what channels is used, is always the same token, and it's one way to identify a customer. That's number two. Number three, I think of alternative payments. They're going to continue to grow. It's interesting, Greg, like if you look at China, there are two mobile wallets, Alipay and WeChat Pay. They make up 87% of all the mobile payments in China. And those two wallets, in last year, people spent $6.5 trillion just using those two mobile wallets. That's amazing. Now imagine the implications if something like that was to come to the US.
Yeah, huge.
And then the last thing that I see is a tremendous growth in payment analytics. How do you harmonize all of this payment data across multiple payment vendors and geographies to provide timely alerts and insights?
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned one of the alternative payments, as one of the trends. What do you kind of mentioned this earlier, but maybe you could dive a little deeper into it, is about Bitcoin and sort of that whole cryptocurrency. What's your view on where that's going to play into this?
So it's fascinating. Even like the little bit that I know, it's kind of insane. And there's so much more information that's to be learned. So I'm kind of in the process of immersing myself to learn as much as I can about cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin being one of them. But one of the things that I see is as businesses start to accept blockchain currencies like Bitcoin, is it kind of legitimizes them and it gives them more legs.
Right.
And as governments start to put rules around them, it legitimizes them, and they're here to stay. So I think they're definitely here to stay. I heard Elon Musk from Tesla say that they might take Bitcoin, for customers who want to buy cars. I mean, that sounds pretty cool if you could do that. And there are some merchants you've heard online that they're open to or exploring taking Bitcoin as a method of payment. I think that's on the bleeding edge. I don't see mainstream merchants doing that as of yet, but it's one of those things that could evolve really quickly, especially if there are government regulations or sort of structure that comes into place that allows these sort of currencies to have a clear lane to kind of go down on.
Okay. Well, now this has been great information. I really appreciate your time and you being on the show today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for the opportunity, Greg. Good talking to you.
You too. And for more information about optimized payments and this actual series, please visit our show notes.